The silence lasted exactly 17 seconds. 17 seconds of dead air on national television while veteran journalist Richard Hayes sat frozen, staring at Bob Marley as if seeing him for the first time. Hayes had spent 12 years destroying careers with his ruthless interviews, ambushing celebrities with gotcha questions, and exposing what he called the fraud behind the fame. He had prepared for weeks to demolish Bob Marley on live TV, armed with accusations about drug promotion, religious extremism, and corrupting American youth. But Bob had just said something that shattered every assumption Hayes had built his career on, leaving 12 million viewers watching the most brutal takedown artist in television history realize he had become the very thing he claimed to fight against. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shaped the legends we know today. CBS Studios, New York City, November 3rd, 1980, 7:28 p.m. 60 Minutes was the most feared television program in America. Every Sunday night, 12 million Americans tuned in to watch investigative journalists expose corruption, hypocrisy, and fraud among the rich and famous. Tonight's target was Bob Marley. Richard Hayes had been preparing this interview for 6 weeks. Hayes was CBS's attack dog, a 42-year-old former prosecutor who had made his television reputation by destroying public figures who, in his view, deceived the American public. His interview style was legendary for its aggression, rapid-fire accusations, damning evidence presented without warning, and a refusal to let subjects escape with politician answers. Hayes had convinced his producers that Bob Marley was the perfect target. Here was a foreign musician whose songs about Babylon and revolution were influencing American teenagers. His Rastafari religion promoted marijuana use. His lyrics encouraged resistance to authority. In Hayes's mind, Bob Marley was a dangerous influence disguised as a peace-loving musician. "He's not what he appears to be," Hayes had told his producer during their pre-interview meeting. "Marley presents himself as spiritual and peaceful, but he's actually promoting drug use and anti-American sentiment to impressionable young people. I'm going to expose the real Bob Marley." Hayes had spent weeks researching ammunition for his attack. He had clips of Bob's more political songs, quotes about resisting oppression, and footage from concerts where audiences appeared to be under the influence of drugs. He had interviewed former associates willing to claim that Bob's spiritual image was calculated marketing. What Hayes hadn't done was actually listen to Bob's music with an open mind or try to understand what Bob's message actually meant. Bob arrived at CBS Studios that evening, unaware that he was walking into an ambush. His management had told him this was a standard promotional interview to discuss his upcoming American tour and his latest album. Bob came prepared to talk about music, spirituality, and his hopes for bringing people together through reggae. He was dressed simply but elegantly, a dark suit, white shirt, and his dreadlocks neatly arranged. Bob carried himself with the quiet dignity that had become his trademark, radiating calm confidence despite being in unfamiliar territory. In the makeup room, Hayes watched Bob through the mirror, studying his target like a prosecutor preparing for cross-examination. "He's very calm," the makeup artist mentioned to Hayes. "Seems like a nice man." "That's the mask," Hayes replied coldly. "Everyone seems nice until you start asking the right questions." At exactly 8 p.m., red lights came on in Studio 3, indicating they were live to 12 million American households. "Good evening," Hayes began, looking directly into camera 1. "I'm Richard Hayes. Tonight on 60 Minutes, we examine Bob Marley, the Jamaican musician whose reggae music has gained enormous popularity among American teenagers. But is Bob Marley the peaceful spiritual leader he claims to be, or is he something more dangerous? Hayes turned to Bob, who sat calmly in the guest chair, apparently unaware of what was coming. Mr. Marley, welcome to 60 Minutes. Thank you for having me, Richard. Let's get right to the point, Hayes said, his voice taking on the prosecutorial tone that had made him famous. Your songs frequently reference Babylon as an evil force to be resisted. Many of your American fans interpret Babylon as the United States government. Are you encouraging American young people to resist their own government? Bob paused thoughtfully. Richard, Babylon in Rastafari doesn't refer to any specific government. It refers to systems of oppression anywhere in the world that value money and power over human dignity. But you're performing these songs for American audiences who hear Resist Babylon as Resist America, aren't you? I'm performing songs about justice, love, and spiritual freedom. If people hear that as threatening to any particular system, perhaps they should ask why those systems feel threatened by messages of love. Hayes had expected defensive answers he could attack. Bob's calm, thoughtful response was harder to weaponize, but Hayes pressed forward. Mr. Marley, your religion, Rastafari, promotes the use of marijuana, which is illegal in the United States. Are you promoting illegal drug use to American teenagers? Rastafari views cannabis as a sacred herb used for meditation and spiritual connection, similar to how wine is used in Christian communion. But I've never told anyone they should use any substance. I sing about spiritual freedom, and each person must find their own path to that freedom. Hayes pulled out a folder of prepared materials. But let's look at what you actually sing, Mr. Marley. In your song, Burnin' and Lootin', you sing about burning and looting. Aren't you encouraging violence and criminal behavior? Bob smiled gently. Richard, that song is about the burning and looting that happens when social injustice creates desperation. It's describing problems that exist, not encouraging them. The song's message is that we need to address the root causes of these problems: poverty, inequality, oppression. So you're blaming society for criminal behavior? I'm saying that when people are hungry, when they feel hopeless, when systems don't provide justice, some will turn to violence. The song suggests we address those conditions rather than just punish the symptoms. Hayes was becoming frustrated. Bob wasn't giving him the defensive, angry responses he needed to expose him as dangerous. Instead, Bob was calmly explaining complex social philosophy in ways that made Hayes's accusations sound simplistic. Hayes decided to escalate. Mr. Marley, I've spoken with former associates who say your spiritual image is carefully calculated marketing designed to sell records to naive American teenagers seeking rebellion against authority. What do you say to accusations that you're a fraud? For the first time, Bob's expression showed a flicker of sadness rather than calm. Richard, why do you think I would travel thousands of miles, spend months away from my family, work years to develop my music, just to deceive people? What would be my motivation for such elaborate deception? Money, fame, influence over young minds. Bob nodded slowly. Richard, can I ask you something? Hayes was caught off guard. The subject wasn't supposed to ask questions. What? What do you believe in? What gives your life meaning and purpose? Hayes stared at Bob, unsure how to respond. This wasn't part of his attack plan. I'm here to ask the questions, Mr. Marley. But you're asking me about my beliefs, my motivations, my purpose. I'm curious about yours. What drives you? What do you hope to accomplish with your work? Hayes felt control of the interview slipping away. I expose fraud and deception, I protect the public from people who aren't what they claim to be. And how do you determine who is fraudulent and who is authentic? By asking tough questions, by not accepting easy answers. Bob leaned forward slightly. Richard, you've asked me many questions tonight about my music, my religion, my motivations. But have you ever actually listened to my music? I mean truly listened, trying to understand the message rather than looking for evidence to support conclusions you've already reached. Hayes opened his mouth to respond, then realized he couldn't honestly claim he had. Have you studied Rastafari beliefs beyond looking for things you could present as dangerous or weird? Have you tried to understand why millions of people around the world find hope and healing in this music? Hayes was silent. Richard, Bob continued gently, you've spent tonight trying to prove I'm not what I appear to be. But what if the real question is, are you what you appear to be? What do you mean? You appear to be a journalist seeking truth. But tonight, you haven't asked a single question seeking to understand truth. Every question has been designed to confirm assumptions you made before you met me. The camera was still rolling, broadcasting this moment live to 12 million homes. Hayes could feel his carefully constructed aggressive persona crumbling. You appear to be protecting the public from deception, Bob continued. But what if you're actually preventing the public from hearing perspectives that might challenge their own assumptions? What if your role as guardian of truth has become a way of controlling which truths people are allowed to hear? Hayes sat silent, his prepared attacks evaporating as Bob's words hit their target. Richard, I think you became a journalist because you wanted to expose lies and reveal truth. That's a noble calling. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that anyone different from you must be dangerous, that any message you don't immediately understand must be fraudulent. Bob's voice remained gentle, but his words were surgical in their precision. You've accused me of deceiving young people, but what are you teaching them? That they should be suspicious of anyone who looks different, sounds different, believes differently. That they should fear messages about love and unity because they come from someone with dreadlocks and dark skin. Hayes felt something breaking inside his chest. He had built his career on being the smartest person in the room, the one who saw through everyone else's deceptions. But Bob was showing him that his supposed insight was actually a form of blindness. You asked about my motivations, Bob said. My motivation is simple. I've experienced poverty, violence, oppression, and pain. I've also experienced love, healing, community, and hope. I sing about both experiences because both are part of human life. I sing about problems because acknowledging them is the first step toward solving them. I sing about hope because people need to believe change is possible. Bob paused, letting his words sink in. What's your motivation, Richard? When you destroy someone's reputation on television, when you humiliate them in front of millions of people, when you reduce complex human beings to simplistic villains, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you making the world better, or are you just making yourself feel powerful? Bob nodded gracefully. Richard, it takes courage to admit when we've been wrong. Thank you. Can we start over? Hayes asked. Can you tell our audience what your music is really about? Not what I assumed it was about, but what you intended it to be? What followed was the most remarkable interview transformation in television history. For the remaining 20 minutes of the program, Hayes asked genuine questions about Bob's music, his philosophy, his hopes for how his art could impact the world. Bob spoke about growing up in poverty in Jamaica, about finding hope through music and spirituality, about his belief that all people deserved dignity and respect regardless of their race, religion, or nationality. Hayes listened, truly listened, for the first time in years. He asked follow-up questions that showed he was trying to understand rather than trap. He displayed genuine curiosity about Rastafari beliefs, about reggae music's origins, about Bob's experiences with discrimination and how they shaped his worldview. As the interview concluded, Hayes made one final statement to the camera. "Tonight, I learned something important about journalism, about truth, and about myself. Bob Marley taught me that seeking to understand is more valuable than seeking to destroy, that asking questions with an open mind yields more truth than asking questions with a closed one." Hayes looked at Bob one more time. "Thank you for being patient with me tonight. Thank you for responding to my hostility with grace. And thank you for reminding me why I became a journalist in the first place."